Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I want to welcome you. You guys are in for a treat. We had a sneak preview of Stephanie's at the fall meeting. And this is sponsored by the Small Business Cabinet Council, SBCC. You're going to see more of that. You're going to see more of us in the newsletter. We're going to start to have a corner in there. We're going to have more webinars throughout the year. And what we're trying to do is bring relevant topics and solutions that are going on in your business. So for small to mid-sized businesses within the KCMA is what we're trying to target. So enjoy.
Thank you, Vince. And we are very excited to have Stephanie here. I could go on, but I'll let her do that. I will say that at the fall conference, we were all lucky enough to have holiday gift tins filled with Stuckey's treats. And I know they could probably feed a family of 10, but for me, it was one serving because they were so good. And we are excited to have Stephanie because it's perfect, as Vince mentioned, to bring value to really businesses of all sizes, but in particular, small and medium, as she does a fantastic job of social media, growing, reestablishing her brand. And with that, I will turn it over to Stephanie.
Great. Thank you so much, Vince and Mike. It's just a pleasure to have the Kitchen Cabinet Manufacturers Association host this. And as Vince and I were talking beforehand, behind so many businesses, especially in the cabinetry industry, there are so many families, and behind every family is a story. And really at its core, what branding is all about and growing a social media presence, it's about that storytelling. So that's a lot of what I'm going to share today. And I'm going to get my slides up. And the topic today is social media success for small businesses. And I am living proof that you really can do this yourself. In the span of less than 3 years, my social media presence on LinkedIn in particular, I'm going to focus mostly on LinkedIn. Feel free at the end if you have questions about some of the other platforms, because I am on all the platforms. Happy to respond to some of that. I will talk a little bit about doing some video content as well, but I think this is mostly a business audience. And if you are looking to grow your business and grow your brand, LinkedIn is really the space for you. And that's where I've seen my biggest success. So you can see here, I did this screenshot today. I have to put my glasses on. So I'm almost at 114,000 followers. Quite a few of my posts, they'll show you in the analytics how much engagement, how many views your posts are getting. And I routinely get posts that have 500,000 to 1 million views and engagements. And I started out with about 1,000. So you can do this. It's really a lot of hard work, but it's doable. So with that, I will, now I got to figure out how to advance my screen. Okay, here we go. So I like this quote. When I first bought my family's business, and I'll go a little into the background of Stuckey's just so I can put my story in context. But this really is about how you can brand and how you can create a social media presence. But when I first started really getting out there on social media for the brand, we are a family business. My father called me and said, quit wasting your time with those social media posts and go sell product. And I think, he's a different era, and I love my dad. He's got a lot of good advice, but I think, you see sometimes what I'm posting, and it's very rare that I'm actually posting salesy stuff. I'm not saying click here to buy Stuckey's product or, go get some pecan log rolls. I really am telling stories, and it's been amazing that storytelling is what drives sales. It's not the go buy our product. It's more subtle and it's more engaging. So ignore sometimes that advice when people say, don't waste your time on social media, because if you're doing it right, it really does produce results. And here's living proof of the results. Thanks to the social media presence, I got a call from the Today Show, and there I am taking a road trip to a Stuckey's with Harry Smith, and that got millions of views. It was an incredible experience. And then we were also front page of the New York Times Sunday edition, business section, July 22nd, I think I got that date right, was on Revival of the Road Trip, and they had a whole page on Stuckey's and featuring our road trip. So that's all about the storytelling. And this will show that it does drive results. This was the day the New York Times post hit. That was sales of pecan log rolls alone. We sold something like 1,000 boxes of pecan log rolls in one day. It was insane. So it works. And I love that I got picked up by travelandleisure.com talking about my TikTok of all things, because that's the area where I feel the most insecure and have had struggled with how to create engaging content. But it does show with zero budget, as I posted, but lots of heart and hard work. Even a scrappy brand like Stuckey's can make a comeback, and that's showing it. And I wanted to give another example of a small brand that has had incredible results. I'm a little biased because I'm from Georgia, but this is the Savannah Bananas. Some of you may be familiar with their brand, and their owner and manager, Jesse Cole, is just a brand machine. He wears a yellow tuxedo. He's written a book. He's written 2 books. I've read Find Your Yellow Tuxedo. And you can see here all of the media that they've gotten, including their own TV show on ESPN. And I reached out to Jesse on LinkedIn, and I actually am now friends with him because I borderline stalked him, but he's an amazing person. And I reached out to him when he got the ESPN show, and I said, "Who's your publicist? How did you do this?" And he responded, "I don't have a publicist. I do everything myself." And if you read his story, you'll see it's similar to mine, where he had no budget. In fact, like me, his company, his team was in the red when he bought the company, and he's completely turned it around. They're sold out for 5 years in advance, and the brand is growing. So that's another person. If you don't follow him because he's doing content right. And he also does a lot of video content. So I'm just going to give just a very brief background on Stuckey's, because some of you may be familiar with our brand, some of you may not. I often get questions about how did you end up running this company. So here's a bit of the background. That's my grandfather. He founded Stuckey's in 1937 as a roadside pecan stand in Eastman, Georgia. And he grew it from there to, at its peak, it was in 40 states. We had 368 stores. We had a candy company, a sign company, a trucking company, and we were synonymous with the road trip. We really peaked in the 1970s when the road trip peaked. And we were the first roadside retail chain. I actually got the image is behind me as well. It may not work in everybody's dining room, but it works in mine. But he really created the first roadside retail chain, I mean, dating back to the late 1930s. So before there was TA or Love's or Wawa or Buc-ee's, there was Stuckey's. And it was pretty amazing what he did. And one of the things I learned about him that I carry with me to this day is the importance of branding. I was told a story by someone who knew him, and he said he sat down with my grandfather once. He was a teenager and just starting out in a small business. And my grandfather said, "I'm going to give you one piece of advice, and that is take 20% of every dollar you make and allocate it towards branding and advertising." And so he got it, that really, if you want to drive sales, you've got to promote your brand. And I love the art of his billboards. If you follow me, and you'll see my post. In fact, I posted yesterday about an old McDonald's sign with Speedy. It's all about the art and the design. This stuff really matters. I loved it, that era when billboards were art. They were really something of beauty, and I would give anything to have these signs. They're unfortunately no longer around, but I love these images. And here's some of the ads that he did back in the day, and they're just so visually appealing. They were done by artists, and to me, that's just so inspiring. And so through his design, through his attention to detail, through the way he created an experience we did, as I said earlier, become synonymous with the road trip. And I love this image because it just sort of encapsulates the fun and adventure and the sense of freedom that you get when you drive in a car and just explore America and pull over where you want to pull over. And that's what Stuckey's represented. And so that's our brand identity. And I really take that from our roots and from how my grandfather ran the company. So here's what happened to us. People often say, you know, whatever happened to Stuckey's? So my grandfather sold the company to Pet Dairy Corporation, and they got bought out by a Chicago railroad conglomerate that did not understand a kitschy Southern brand that sold pecan log rolls and rubber alligators on America's highways. And so we gradually were seeing our stores being sold by, you know, a series of outside corporate owners. And in addition to that, there were outside external factors in the economy. We had the Arab oil embargo. So suddenly gas prices were really high. There were changes in
right, Vince,
regulations
you wanna
with the
kick us
Airline
off?
Deregulation Act that made domestic air travel very affordable. So people were flying, and they didn't take those road trips in the Woody station wagon like they once did. And so our brand declined, and many of our stores shuttered. And sadly, a lot of them turned into strip clubs and porn shops on the side of the highway. So that's what happened to our brand. And it didn't happen overnight. It happened over decades. My grandfather sold a company in 1964. He remained involved with the company until his death in 77. And then after that, it's really when the brand started to plummet over decades. And through a series of outside owners, we went from having sort of that classic iconic design of our stores to this, and that store's still standing, and I'm grateful for it because it brings us some income. But that design and that beauty of those original stores, there's only 13 of those original stores still standing. A lot of that has been lost over the decades. So today we have 68 licensed locations. Like I said, 13 original Stuckey stores. We do not own or operate any of them. They pay us a modest licensing fee. So 3 years ago, I was approached by the group that owned Stuckey's, and they asked me if I wanted to buy it. It was for sale. People often ask me, why did I buy Stuckey's? I have no business experience. I'm an environmental attorney by training. I was also a state representative for many years, and I was head of sustainability for the city of Atlanta. So I was happy minding my own business in my green environmental bubble, saving the world from climate change. And I got this call. And why I did it is two reasons. One, it was for sale, so the offer was there. And two, I loved my grandfather, and I didn't want our legacy to be a bunch of strip clubs on the side of the road. So here's what I bought. Not a lot, really. We had a rented warehouse in Eastman, Georgia, that supplied those 68 licensed locations. All of our product had been outsourced for decades by co-packers, by outside manufacturers. So we weren't making our original product anymore. That candy plant my grandfather owned was long sold. The billboard company was sold. The trucking company was sold and shuttered. All of that was gone. We really just had those licensed locations and a rented warehouse that had a bunch of dusty inventory, including 6 cases of Britney Spears t-shirts. Thank God she made a comeback. I was able to make a profit off of those t-shirts. So when I bought the company, I love this, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, our local paper in Georgia, they did a story on me purchasing the company, and they said, heiress drives family legacy. So the second part of the title I love, Stuckey's on the Road to Revival, because they picked up on our road trip theme. But I definitely was not an heiress. When I think of heiress, I think of the Hilton family or Kim Kardashian. I think of people who actually inherited something instead of spending their life savings on it. And also they got something of value. We were 6 figures in the red when I bought the company in October of 2019. So what I did to turn the company around was I invested along with my business partner. I got a partner He's a pecan farmer, RG Lamar. And the two of us got a small business association loan, and we purchased a candy plant and a pecan processing plant. So we're now making our product ourselves. So that's what's been driving our sales. And it's important to understand that context, because I still talk about the road trip with the brand. And I understand, we really don't own these stores anymore, but that gets to your brand value. Whether you're selling a product, whether you have a service, whether you have a store, there is a brand story that is going to connect people with what you're selling or what you're doing. And for us, it was the road trip. And it was a bit of a challenge, because you do have to figure out, we're selling product, we're telling the story of the road trip. But really, once you understand what your brand is about, it all starts to fall in place. I also want to talk briefly about the importance of design. I showed my grandfather's billboards earlier. I really don't spend a lot of money on marketing. The bit of money I do spend is on designers. We have two very good graphic designers. One is more experienced than the other, kind of trained the one who's more affordable. So it's kind of been a good mix that we found a combination we can afford. I'm happy afterwards to share information on the designers we use, because they're amazing. But this will just give you a feel. This was what the design looked like when I bought the company. Frankly, I think that looks like somebody's flunky teenage nephew who worked at the print shop, who knew basic Adobe and came up with this, because I think that is just hideous. And you can see on the left, this is what our packaging looked like when I purchased the company. And I think the image on the left looks like dog vomit. I just was appalled that this was my grandfather's company. And you saw the design work that he had with the billboards and the ads. Here's someone who really cared about his image, and that image on the left is not brand forward. They even got the date of our founding wrong. They said 1928. We were founded in 1937. So on the right is the design that we are now moving forward with. I love it because I think it fits our brand. You have to think about what design is going to be good for your product, your company. For us, I wanted that retro nostalgia, but I also wanted something that had a sense of freshness. And I also felt very strongly that we needed to distinguish ourselves from our competitors. So if you see a lot of the design work out there for pecan companies and pecan candy companies, a lot of it is sort of on the farm, wearing blue jeans and a white button-down shirt, and oldie-timey with a rocking chair, sort of Cracker Barrel with 2Ks, country kitchen sort of look, which is fine, but that wasn't the image I wanted to portray, and I think it's been done. So I like this look. I think it's fresh, but it definitely has an homage, tip of the hat to our origins. The logo, I went back to our very original logo, which is actually my grandfather's signature. So it's an homage to him. And there's so much imagery and meaning behind the logo. I spent a lot of time on the logo, and I think you should too, because I think that is the outward expression of your inner identity. And if you look at that T in particular, I was so picky about that. The cross and the T looks like a trumpet blaring that we're back. We're back. And I just get happy every time I see that logo. And also just that K has a little bit of a sass to it. The Y with its sharp curve, the S with its flow. It just, to me, says volumes. It tells a story. So the design matters. That was a big part. That's how I started to get the company back. On the left is what the brand looked like when I bought the company. That was our classic yellow box that we put our product in. All of our core product line gets sold in what we call a yellow box. It had a carriage on it. The carriage has nothing to do with the road trip. It was not brand forward. So what we have now is a billboard. And in fact, it's one of our old billboard designs. And then we changed that top panel to reflect different things. So we've got that's a holiday special travel pack. Again, it's touching on the road trip theme. And this just gives you some more imagery of what our new design looks like. And you can see on the pecan log roll, there's a little image of what I call the happy family car. So it's family taking a road trip. And that's one of the themes we also hit on is family. So I am going to share the slides afterwards. This, I think, is one of the most important slides. A lot of time went into this. I'm going to give credit to I now have a third business owner, business partner, Ted Wright, who runs a marketing firm. He's also on our board. His firm is called Fizz Marketing. I kind of stalked him on social media. I really liked his content. I read his book on word of mouth marketing and reached out to him and just said, I really admire you. That led to a phone call, which led to lunch. Turns out he lives in Decatur, Georgia, which led to him being on board, which led to him being an equity investor. And he also helps guide us on our strategy. So even though it may look like sometimes I just woke up and came up with an idea to post on social media, if you follow me, a lot of thought goes into the messaging and the overall strategy. I also have a written strategic plan. I'm not going to share that today, but it is helpful to really put on paper what your marketing plan is. By the way, every loan that we've gotten, part of the loan package, they want our marketing plan. So I'm flagging that the branding really is important. And the people who are investing in your company, including banks and financial institutions, want to see your marketing plan. So it is absolutely critical if you're going to grow your business that you have something that's a strategy that's written. And I think this brand, we call this our brand diamond. This is really at the core of what we do. So we sat down and we decided, what are our brand attributes? What really represents Stuckey's? And everything we do is driven by hospitality. Whether you buy our product in an Ingles or a Food Lion or a Wawa, those are some of our retail partners, or you go to one of those original 13 stores, we want you to feel hospitable. My grandfather had a saying, every traveler is a friend. And whether you're a road tripper or you're just traveling through life, anyone who comes in contact with our brand, we want to treat them as a friend with warmth and just that sense of belonging. So hospitality is key. Family is very important to us. And I think that's one of the reasons why the kitchen cabinet manufacturers has been such a wonderful friend to Stuckey's. And I enjoyed attending your conference this year because many of you are family businesses. So we really pride ourselves on having that family legacy. Candy and souvenirs, that's a lot of what we're about. Dependable. We've been around for over 85 years, so we're not going anywhere, even though we've had some ups and downs. We're still here. Americana, we are unabashedly patriotic, pro-American. We make all of our products, source all of our pecans from local farmers. Everything's made in America. Our packaging comes from America. I pride myself on when we're sourcing product, we source from as much as possible small businesses, American businesses. We look for veterans, we look for minority-owned businesses. So that is very much part of not just our brand, but our values. Blue Roof, that's just a tip of the hat to our origins and the design and the beautiful architecture of my grandfather's stores. Georgia Pecans, we're very proud that we are connected to Georgia agriculture, and that's very much part of what we do. I do post a lot about farmers and agribusiness and how that is part of our brand. Very family friendly, not just family legacy, but along with being family friendly, we don't cuss, we don't get political, we don't get divisive. Very conscious about trying to steer clear of politics in everything that I do with Stuckey's, and now that I do personally. There's a great quote by Michael Jordan, the basketball star, and he said, you know, he was promoting Air Jordans and somebody asked him to get political and he refused. And he said, even Republicans buy sneakers. So, or Republicans buy sneakers too. Sorry, I don't want to misquote. Republicans buy sneakers too. So I want everyone to buy pecan log rolls, and I don't care about your political views, as long as it's family friendly and not offensive, right? Nostalgia, we embrace the nostalgia while we still want to look forward. It's part of our brand. So I think nostalgia is something that sometimes is tricky because you don't want to be stuck in the past, but I like to say I respect our past, but I don't live in it. But nostalgia, vintage, retro, that's part of who we are as a brand. So I embrace it, and it's part of our brand diamond. And then road trips, that the fun, the adventure, the freedom of seeing America by car. It's not just the road trip per se, it's everything that the road trip represents, that freedom and that fun, that sense of exploration. And this just hones in on it. We literally had a branding strategy session with our team that led to that brand diamond being created. And that was our core executive team, and then also our board members. So there were about 12 of us in a room, and we started talking about what is our brand about. And we said, we're not leaving till we know what the brand's about. And it was literally like the movie 12 Angry Men, if you've seen that, because we were going back and forth. We're about the pecan, we're about the road trip, we're about the pecan, we're about the road trip. Well, finally we said, you know what? It's the road trip, stupid. I can tell some stories about the pecan. There's only so much you can mine about a nut. I can tell endless stories about the road trip. So the bottom, when it came down to it and we had to make that decision, what really represents our brand, it's what can you tell a story about and what can connect more people? And it's a road trip. So how to tell your story. I am totally stealing this from Ted Wright, again, Fizz Marketing. This is not a commercial for him, but I want to credit people who have helped me with our strategy. And he said, your story has to have air. It's authentic, it's interesting, and it's relevant. So authentic means, this is real. It actually happened. But authentic does not mean that you have to tell every single little detail. You're telling a story. This is not a documentary. This is a story that you want to engage people. So it's okay, at least the way I present it, I don't put in every single detail. I want to make sure I'm putting in the details that matter to create the point and the message I'm trying to get across in my post. Interesting. Yeah, it's got to be something that people are going to want to read. And so just think about, is this something I really would want to read if I saw this on my feed? And relevant. It's got to be relatable. Oh, one more thing on authentic that Ted cautioned me, and occasionally I've delved into this too far. He said, don't overshare, don't be too authentic. And you see this sometimes on social media where people will just sort of bare their souls and tell their, every little detail of their life, their very personal things. And Ted's like, you don't need to do that to be authentic. And he said, the test of being authentic is, would your spouse or your significant other or your good friend kick you under the table if you were telling the story at a party because you just told a little too much? So be authentic, but don't be too authentic, I guess. So use some discretion when you figure out what you want to post. I really love this slide because it shows the LinkedIn post where I really started to turn things around. And I posted this a couple of years ago. And before then, I had been posting every day and getting the same 20 people that were my very good friends and colleagues responding and doing a little like and maybe an occasional comment, but it really wasn't engaging people. And then I got really frustrated one day because I was driving on this road trip to visit these original Stuckey stores. And I was constantly seeing what I call ghost stores. These are old Stuckeys that are no longer operating as a Stuckey. So this is one of them. This is Hayden, Alabama. Good news, it's actually now converted to a Stuckey's under the new owner. So that's kind of a fun postscript to this post. But I took this photo and I just posted what I was feeling, and you can read it, but it's that I had been driving the back roads of Alabama in search of lost Stuckeys. And I connected, it wasn't just about me, it was about the journey and how we're all suffering sometimes in this country. This was right at the peak of COVID. And so I said, like our country, Stuckey's is a fixer-upper, but I'm here to do everything I can to help rebuild Stuckey's and rebuild our country and our economy. And I put my phone down. I posted it from my phone and put my phone down. I was driving. I kept hearing those ding, 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 dings when people are responding to your post. And I was amazed that I had, within a very short period of time, those were more likes than I'd ever gotten. Now I get a lot more likes, but at the time I was just stunned. I couldn't believe it. And then I realized, like, I'm onto something. You've got to say, you've got to tell a little bit of a story, and you got to engage people. So here's some of the bullet points. Use these consistent themes. I realized the road trip was something that really people resonated with, but it also was part of our brand identity. So it just fit for us. Reference places, brands, art, music that connect people. So how are ways that other people are going to identify with what you were talking about? I'll give you a good example of that. I'm a huge fan of the band REM, and I did this post about how you can learn branding from REM. So branding lessons are everywhere. It's not just with business. It's in the music industry, it's in entertainment, it's in arts, it's in culture. Everyone is out there branding what they do. And REM started out very small as a college radio band, and they realized that they could grow in an unconventional way. They weren't, this was a time when, especially being on the radio was so big. This is before streaming. You know, there was the payola. You would have to pay these DJs to be on the air. You'd have to pay the radio stations to be on the air. Well, they couldn't afford that. And so they were getting on these college radio stations, and they grew almost organically that way, and just playing all these concerts at universities and colleges. And it grew by word of mouth. And so I did this whole post about branding lessons from REM, and that post just exploded. And the really fun thing about it is that I got a nice message from the manager of REM who said, I read your post. I had like 10 people send it to me, and I really appreciate it. And you got how we built the band and built our brand. And so thank you for that. And so that was really cool. I love that I got a message from Bertus Downs. Creating conversation is really important. I think sometimes we get a little obsessed with what I call vanity likes, where you just want to see that you've got those thumbs up, and that's nice, and that helps your post show up in people's feeds. But is it really engaging people in a meaningful way so that they are going to want to, let's be real, I am telling stories, but I'm selling a product. I want them to engage with our brand and want to buy our product. And so I got to do more than just have someone want to do a thumbs up. So here's one that got just a ton of engagement. You can see I had over 1,000 comments and 12,000 likes. I actually did this screenshot over a year ago. So that post continues to perform. It's amazing. And I actually have my mug from Dell's Diner in Tucumcari, New Mexico. But the post, you can read it. It's about how America is a special place for diners where you have waitresses that call you honey and the coffee is strong enough to slap you in the face and wake you up. Places like that have been around for decades, like a loyal friend just welcoming you. And that's why I pull over, and that's why I'm reviving Stucky. So I did put a little plug in for my own brand, but I told a story. So I was inviting dialogue by telling the story, because in the comments, people were telling me about their favorite diner. And I had quite a few who said, oh my gosh, I love Dell's, I love Tucumcari, I love Route 66. So you get people sharing. The key is not only to get that dialogue, but also respond to those comments. And then to get more people engaged with what your content is, create conversations with other people. Find people whose brands are similar to yours or have storytelling that you admire, and comment on their post, share their post with your own comments. And so that gets a dialogue as well. The other thing I would caution is when you're trying to create a conversation, and I'll do this sometimes, at the end of a post, I'll say, let me know if you've got a favorite diner. So it's okay to put a comment or a sentence at the end that is inviting people to comment, but I would discourage against saying, please comment on this. Now, I know probably none of you would do something that blatant, but I see that. And one, it doesn't get results. It's a little too needy and desperate. You never want to appear needy and desperate in business or in life. So don't do that. The other thing is, I know Facebook in particular, if you outright ask for a comment, their algorithm will rank you lower. So the social media sites have their algorithms, and I'm constantly trying to read up on how they rank you, because that's important to how you draft your content. So you don't want to be ranked lower because you're shamelessly soliciting comments. So just phrase it in a way that's more inviting and asking people to share stories instead of just, will you comment, please? Will you like my post? Yeah, don't ask people to like your post. That's way too needy. I love this quote: once you've accepted your flaws, no one can use them against you. And so own your flaws and be real, be human in what you post. And I will talk some days about my bad days. Again, not oversharing, but not everything's rosy and perfect. And I think sometimes we get so obsessed with our image being one of perfection, or that, hey, business is always just wonderful and I got to post about that. Well, sometimes business isn't always great. Sometimes it's rough. And I will share that to let people know that this is reality of running a small business. It's hard. And some days I wake up at 3 a.m. struggling about whether or not I'm going to make cash flow. Payroll. So if you're my employee, by the way, we are making payroll, so don't worry, but those fears are real. Be comfortable in your own brand. Be comfortable in your own skin, or own your brand. I love that saying. It's a French saying, to be comfortable in your own skin. And this photo, I think, really captures that. This is one of the 13 original Stuckies. This is in Baghdad, Florida, and it's kitschy as heck. I mean, we sell ashtrays shaped like toilets that say, put your butts here. We sell snow globes. We sell redneck fly swatters. We sell redneck all sorts of stuff. That's our brand. And I got a comment once on LinkedIn where the man said, well, I think your stores look really tacky and you have all sorts of stuff hanging from the ceilings. And it looks cheap. And I responded actually to him with a post, and I quoted Sam Walton, who founded Walmart, who said, I can sell anything if you stack it high or hang it from the ceiling. I'm paraphrasing. I don't have the quote exactly right, but he basically said, you got to stack them high and hang them from the ceiling and stuff your store full of stuff. And that's how it's going to sell. And so that's how we sell. And that's Stuckies. And we are not going to be Neiman Marcus. We are not a luxury brand. We are everyman. We are roadside Americana, and we are going to sell tacky t-shirts, and we're going to sell alligator heads, and that's us. That's our brand. So I'm owning it, and I'm not afraid to embrace the kitsch. The photo on the right is actually an image of a Stuckies, one of the original ones in Johnston City, Illinois. They have a statuary garden, including this faux Venus de Milo, and I absolutely love it. So there I am, like totally full on kitsch with the sunglasses on Venus de Milo. And I absolutely love me a good big boy statue. So there I am. I love Americana. That's our brand. I'm going to embrace it. Another way to engage more brands and get more of a following is to be a fangirl. What are other brands that you admire, and post about that? The post about Waffle House, by the way, got over 1 million views within a few days. I posted this on one of Waffle House's anniversaries. This is the original Waffle House #1, which is right down the street from me in Avondale Estates, Georgia. And I did a post about how much I love Waffle House. And this is the really fun thing. A week later, I was minding my own business and I got a phone call, and it was the CEO of Waffle House, the son of the founder, who told me how much he admired what we're doing with the brand, how he stopped at Stuckies when he was a kid, and how he saw the post and he's rooting for me. So every now and then you'll get an amazing response, like the manager of REM or the CEO of Waffle House. I'm doing a quick time check. It's 1:39. I'm going to wrap up in about 5 minutes. So about 15 minutes will remain for questions. So post comments, post questions. Mike's going to help moderate. I love comments just as much as I enjoy getting questions. I think sometimes comments, people can share more what they're actually thinking. So don't think you've got to ask a question, but I'd love to hear from you and know what you're thinking. Okay, so I am a total fangirl of Jesse Cole and Savannah Bananas. And I reached out to him and just shamelessly said, what if we did a pecan log roll giveaway between innings at a Savannah Banana show? And he's like, right on. And so I brought about 1,000 pecan log rolls, and we had the Mananas, which are their cheerleaders, and the Nanas, Nana Bananas, I think are their names. They've got older lady cheerleaders. They're all grandmas, they're all nanas. So they all threw out pecan log rolls between innings, and he did this fun little between inning competition where they did a roll, like a log roll, where people were rolling down the baseball field. So it was really fun. And so there we are with some pecan log rolls before the game. Be your own brand ambassador. I made the mistake, and if you have a lot of money and you can afford to hire a social media ambassador, go for it. This is really geared towards small businesses, so I'm assuming most of you don't have a budget for that. I did stupidly invest $6,000 in social media influencers with an influencing company, and I'm not saying that they didn't do their job, but it was a lot of money for our small firm, and I did not really see the rewards. The best thing was I did get to keep the images that they took. I got to keep the content. There's a lot of back and forth. I mean, they had some women in bikinis posting with log rolls, and I'm like, that is not our brand at all. And so I just thought, I can afford myself. People have asked me, why do you use yourself? There you go. I can afford myself. But here's the other thing. There's a lot of others who've done it, and they've done it very well. Orville Redenbacher spent a lot of money with a big PR firm. If you watch The Food That Built America, the episode on popcorn, they go into this. And at the end of this marketing survey that they did on how he was going to create an ad campaign, they said, you should call your company Orville Redenbacher and you should promote yourself. So save yourself the money. Don't do what I did or what Orville Redenbacher did to find out that you can just promote your own brand and be very successful. I love Famous Amos. There's an absolute promoter. His background was entertainment, not cookies, and he certainly used it to promote his Famous Amos cookies. I love him because he was really the first African-American brand ambassador. So he was really breaking a lot of barriers when he came out and started promoting his brand. And then I love Pinky Cole because I'm a vegetarian and I'm from Atlanta. So love what she does. And she promotes her own brand and she's phenomenally successful. The one thing I would say about all of us, myself included, I mean, I'm 57 years old. I'm not out there wearing skimpy clothes or trying to be sexy. I'm just being myself. None of the folks on this page, we're all, we all present well, but these aren't supermodels. These are regular people who are authentic. And I think you can be your own brand ambassador too, because I'm sure every single one of you is authentic. This gets back to owning your mistakes, that earlier slide. Share your mistakes. I won't go into this, but I did do a post. We had a terrible packaging snafu where we had to end up withdrawing product because the packaging smelled bad and it was affecting the taste of the product. It wasn't a human health risk, but it was certainly a reputational risk. And it set us back about $40,000. It was really a tough hit for us, but we did the right thing. And when we withdrew the product, and so I did a post and really shared that story. So that's just one example. I love that picture. My business partner does have a good sense of humor. Some tools of the trade. These are just tools I use. There are other services out there, but I love Hootsuite that just helps you program and plan and calendar your post in advance. So you've got a busy week ahead, you can just load up your post on all the different social media platforms, and Hootsuite will post them for you on whatever schedule you dictate. And so I found that to be very helpful. They also provide services and support for small businesses. They have a focus on small businesses. So I'm a Hootsuite fan. Canva helps me create some original content. It's a design app. Also, I invested in a really nice iPhone 14 with a great camera so I could take my own photos. And that gets to this point, legal stuff. I take my own photos because you do not want to get in trouble if you use an image that is not royalty free. I learned that the hard way. I had a blogger that I used who's wonderful. He helps write the Stucky Pecan blog roll. And he used images, and he used some Getty images that he did not cite. And he included in that post a link to buy our product. So it could not be considered educational. It was considered commercial. We were violating copyright laws, and we had to pay $4,000 in penalties to deal with the lawyer who contacted us with a threatening letter. So from then on, I said, you know what? I'm just not even bothering with royalty-free images or trying to credit other people's sources. I'm just using my own. And these are 2 images I took myself. Maybe they're not professional photography, but they're my own. Here's the other thing. If you use your own photos and you learn how to do metadata, you can embed metadata in your content, and it will link to your website. You can describe the images and the metadata. And that way, when when people do a Google search for the muffler man or the thing, they will come up with your image that's on the Stucky's website or on the Stucky's blog. And so it drives traffic, and you can't do that with other people's images. If you want to learn about metadata, just contact me, but you can Google how to do that. It's pretty easy. Partnerships is another way to really advance your social media standing. We sponsor a bike race every year. We sponsor them primarily with free product. We don't have a budget for sponsorship, but this has been a great way to sort of expand our brand to a different audience. So I'm constantly looking for some partnerships that can get us beyond sort of, our brand tends to have a demographic that's age 50 and up. And so as much as possible, I try to get some younger demographics, healthier demographic. We're not just about candy. So that's one. Here's another. We partnered with the Wild Heaven Brewery, a local brewery, to have a pecan beer, and it's been phenomenally successful. We've had it in production now for 3 years, and the team there is great, and they have an amazing social media strategy. So they've promoted our brand to their audience. And again, it's opening us up to new demographic. Ultimately, it's all about building a sense of community. I love this. The entrepreneurial journey is about being alone together. That's the way I see us and the Kitchen Cabinet Manufacturers Association. We're small businesses, and through the power of associations like Kitchen Cabinet Manufacturers, we're all learning and growing together. Almost at the end, process. I follow Gary Vee a lot. If you follow him, he's a social media influencer, and he gives a lot of tips on how to post and how to get a following. He says post every day on every social media platform. I put almost, because some days I just have to run the company. This is part of running the company, but there's life that intervenes. So my goal is to post every day. I post almost every day. The way I come up with original content is whenever an idea comes to me, I have a note on my iPhone on the Notes app that is just social media content. So I'm getting ideas all the time in meetings and discussions and talking to people, and I'll write them down. So I have a log of content ideas. If I wake up one morning and I'm at a loss, seeking inspiration from others, I look at influencers I admire and see what they post and what their stories are like, and that helps inspire me. Tweak your content to the platform. LinkedIn is the most businessy, so I try to be more business focused in what I post. Twitter tends to be more sarcastic and sassy. Facebook is a little oldie timey. I'll do a lot of retro road trip stuff on that. Instagram is very visual. They're all about the stories. And then I'm now getting on TikTok. So I'm experimenting with video content, which helps elevate your status definitely on Instagram if you post on Reels, because they are looking for more video content. Here's an interesting story. I had a account recently that we opened at a trade show last week. The guy came by our booth and said, I am placing an order with you because I saw your TikTok post. So TikTok does work. Here are my final takeaways. I'm not going to read it. You can read it yourself and everyone can have access to this, but hopefully this sums up some of the points. And I'm sorry I went over. I have 10 minutes for questions and comments, and I am going to, oh, I do want to show this. This is how you can reach me. Also, you can reach me at sstuckey@stuckeys.com or message me on LinkedIn. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and hand it over to Mike to help moderate questions.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Stephanie. A couple of quick comments just on the effectiveness of your social media. I first saw one of your posts with someone I followed, reshared your post. I thought it was cool. So I went to your site, your LinkedIn page. That was cool. So I started following you. And then, as Stephanie said, so I reached out to her and I just said, hey, would you be interested in speaking at our conference? And immediately she responded, and here we are. So
Awesome.
It does work.
I will say I do my best to respond to LinkedIn messages, but you may be like me that I get a lot of spam on LinkedIn and unwanted solicitations that are clearly not geared specifically to Stuckey's, but they're sending out 2,000 of these generic solicitations. So I do my best to weed through all the junk I get. Sometimes I don't weed out and I miss things. So do try to email me sstuckey@stuckeys.com and that will get to me.
And then one other quick comment on the Savannah Bananas. I know about them through local sports radio, and the only reason why they talk about them is because of all the crazy things they do.
Yeah.
The big thing that actually got them on them talking about them is when someone hits a foul ball, fan catches it, it's an out. So just doing things that are different than anyone else does it makes it fun, and it definitely gets you out there.
Yeah, be different. Don't be afraid to laugh at yourself. Have fun. And that is absolutely what Savannah Bananas does. And if you read Find Your Yellow Tux by Jesse Cole, he really does talk a lot about his story and his method, which I found incredibly helpful.
Okay, so I'll ask these questions in order. First one is, what do you believe are the key categories of a written marketing plan?
What are the key categories of what?
Written marketing plan.
Key categories of marketing.
Of a marketing plan. You were talking early on about.
Oh, key categories of a marketing plan. If whoever asked that wants to email me, I can email you our marketing plan just so you can see how we structured it. I have it's akin to a strategic plan in that I do start off with our mission, our vision, and our history. And then I go into demographics, what our customer base is, and it actually has a chart that lists the different types of customers. Then I do a competitive scan, and I have another chart that goes into who are our competitors and how we distinguish ourselves. And that exercise is more to know how I'm going to make sure I'm different and what I'm posting. And, I have a different approach to business. I really even see, maybe I'll do air quotes, our competitors as a collaboration, because if you're in the pecan business like Stuckey's, I feel like we're all trying to elevate the pecan together and make that a more popular nut on America's snack aisle. So they're competitive, but they're also, we're in it together. And same with some of these other roadside retail establishments, they can be our customers and sell our product because we're really not making a lot of money off of the stores. So I say the competitive scan for me is more an exercise that helps me figure out how we are unique and special and different in the marketplace. So I have that. And then I have messaging points. So sort of key messages and themes that I want to draw on in our post and themes. And I think I hope I've covered most of what we put in there. I think I do have in there how we tweak the messaging for the different social media platforms. So hopefully that's helpful on how we structure it. If that wasn't, ask another question, I'll try to clarify.
Okay, here's an interesting one. How does Stucky's ideal customer of the present compare to the road trip ideal customer of the past?
How does the ideal customer of the present compare to the ideal customer of the past?
For Stucky, yeah.
For Stuckey's? Well, we're still striving to get to what I would call the ideal customer. We want to have a younger customer base as well as our older base. I look at the demographics like I did my political campaigns. When I was running for re-election, I always started with my base, people who I knew had supported me in the past, who had donated to me or put up a yard sign. Like I knew that they were supporting me. And so, you know, we have a core base of Stuckey's brand fans, and I will always be loyal to them. I'm not going to chase after new customers while neglecting the existing ones. So I absolutely love people who are AARP members. But at the same time, we've got to appeal to a younger demographic. And the main way we're doing that is, I think, with a theme that is universal, that defies categorization, and that's the road trip. You can be 5 years old or you can be 85 and enjoy a good road trip and enjoy exploring America. So I would say our present customer is starting to trend younger, but is not quite where we need to be. I would also like to see more diversity in our customer base. We are predominantly white, and I definitely want to try to show that, you know, our brand is for everyone. We certainly have a rich history of being a welcoming brand to everyone. Our stores were never segregated during the Jim Crow era in the South. And so there's a lot of people, especially African Americans in the South, who have fond associations with our brand, knowing that we were one of the places where they knew they could stop and that they were safe and were welcome. So there's a history there that I think I can build on that base, who know the brand from when they took road trips in the 60s and 70s. But still, I think my present customer is still skewing white and older. Ideally, as we move forward, we want to diversify with age and race and just make sure that we really are an inclusive brand.
Great. So here's a question. So do you have any plans for using QR code as a way to link the virtual world and the real world? I know cereal boxes, you can scan a QR code and it'll take you to a contest or video.
Yes. That's great. And thank you for reminding me. We need to do more of that. In fact, I'm working on cashew packaging today. We sell other nuts besides pecans, by the way, and I'm working on the copy and the package design. So need to add a QR code. We have started experimenting with that. We recently had a beautiful end cap display at HEB Grocery in San Antonio, and the display included a QR code where you could link to our website. And we're also looking at a wobbler, if you're familiar with that term in retail. It's a little tag that hangs from a shelf and literally wobbles. And so we're looking at getting some wobblers that would have a QR code on them. Hey, if you've got more suggestions how we could use QR codes more, we do need to experiment with that more.
Okay, and then another question is sort of a comment, but I guess it's a question just about the Burma Shave billboards in the past. Is that something that can be maybe translated in the same idea but into the present?
I like that. I have to think about that. Billboards are expensive. And since mostly what we're doing is selling product and we're on a limited budget, we have not invested in billboards, but maybe there's a way to use that concept, because Burma Shave was about telling stories and people wanted to read what the next sign said. Burma Shave signs were created by the owner of Burma Shave. He didn't hire a marketing firm. He came up with that original content himself. There's actually 2 places in America where you can see Burma Shave signs. They're both on Route 66. One's in Arizona and one's in Illinois. I've seen the one in Illinois, and I did a post on it and a TikTok on it, by the way. So I'd love to give some thought to maybe how I could take that Burma Shave concept and apply it to how we're marketing the brand, mostly with product. Anyone out there has some ideas, let me know.
The person just commented, Burma Shave did have small billboards. So, but yeah, that's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
Again, last question is, can you insert requests for engagement in images and still get the engagement without the algorithm slap?
Wait, can you ask it again? I'm having trouble hearing.
Sorry, I'm trying to find where my microphone is. Can you insert requests for engagement in images on posts and not trigger the algorithm to remove it?
Can you put the request in the image?
Yes.
I don't know. That's interesting. Like as the metadata, maybe?
Or even just, if you overlay a caption on top of the photo.
Okay, overlay a caption. I like that. That's a very good idea. I have not thought of that. I'm always trying to figure out creative ways to solicit comments that's not too solicitous. So, a good example is if I'm taking a road trip to a place, this always gets engagement every single time it works. I'll say, I'm going to Albuquerque and I'm looking for a dive bar. There's certain trigger words that people love. People love diners, they love dive bars, they love classic movie theaters, or coffee shops, breweries. So I'll put in there, does anyone know a good dive bar in Albuquerque? And not only will it engage people, but I get great suggestions. I have visited so many fun dive bars thanks to the LinkedIn community. So that's been a fun plus. And then here's the cool thing. Then when you go to the dive bar that somebody recommended, when I write down what the suggestions are, I always put down also who made that comment. So then you do another post and say, thanks so much to Jim Houston, who told me that I should go to Kansas City Barbecue in San Diego, which is where they filmed the Top Gun bar scene, by the way. I had so much fun. Here's a picture of me. So it's really a fun way to elevate your post and get more content from your original content. It just feeds on itself. And I see we're over time, so apologize for that.
No, this has been fantastic. Yeah, so thank you very much. There are a few comments and questions, but people can email you. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
sstuckey@stuckeys.com.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Stephanie. It's always a pleasure
Thank you.
to see you and hear what you have to say. And we'll talk to you soon.
It was my pleasure.